Hello, good afternoon, good evening, or good morning, depends on where the world you're watching. Today is Newbie Monday. Newbie Monday already. God, it comes around so quickly, doesn't it? Anyway, I'm Dorjan24, and today I'm solo because Christian unfortunately has things to deal with. If you're watching the ESL, you probably know what. But I'll leave it at that. He will be back for Thursday, but that does mean that tomorrow has changed. I'll go through that in a minute, though, because right now it's Monday, which means Newbie Monday, and I'll do my best to be solo. Today's topic is the research tree. What you can do to go, well, what paths are best for you as your player, your play style, everything about you. So if you feel like you're an aggressive player and want that sort of tank, today should help you. We should explain what path you can go to. We should save you a long time if you go down, let's say, the German heavy trees, expecting a good all-round tank to be able to bust in there at close range and deal damage, and you get disappointed because you really need to stand off and angle your armor and be clever. Now, that could make you feel a bit sour. So let's make sure that doesn't happen with today. So in part 1, I'll be going through some random stuff. In part 2, some more random stuff. And in part 3, the last of the random stuff. Depends on where the mood takes us. So, yeah. So sorry about that. It's nothing too serious, no. It's actually a good thing, and it's nothing to do directly with him. It's a good thing, but it's just one of them times of the year. It's exam time. That's all I'll say. It's exam time. It's just very stressful for people. So, yeah. So, cool. I think that's everything I have to say about everything else. So, I'll just go through the basic... Oh, sorry. No, I will go through what's happening tomorrow. Tomorrow, instead of doing the live stream, we're probably going to be doing me reading and doing awesome stuff. We're not entirely decided yet. We'll probably be running on the TeamSpeak server company battles with the crew. So you won't be just playing with Highflyer and myself, because obviously Highflyer won't be there. You'll be playing with PzIV, Spyble, and Behemoth and Cap. You'll be playing with them guys in rotation in company battles. So the sign-up sheet, if you were eagle-eyed, would have actually noticed that it wasn't set for today. It was actually set for next week. So we won't even be using the sign-up sheet tomorrow. It'll be literally turn up, we'll shove people in a team, and we'll go have some fun. So, cool? I hope it's cool, because just we're going to turn out and have a chill time together, fill up the schedule with, us playing music. Yeah, I'll show you how to play guitar. Awesome hats, reading Omelette. We'll actually go through Omelette. We'll see how far we can go until you guys get bored of my voice. And general badass stuff like that. So we're thinking of something to do. We can always think of something to do, yeah? Yeah, we can always think of something. Yeah. Right, okay, so... let's get into it. Right. Let's see if my computer can handle this. I'm actually in World of Tanks on my computer. So, get ready for it. Ready? What's this? The tech tree. Yeah. So, as you know, there are 4 classes at the moment. I say classes. Countries. Or... corporations. We have USSR, we have the USA, we have the Nazi Germany, and we have France. Now, obviously you guys know that the British are coming very, very soon, and so unfortunately this episode lies days before the British have come. But then again, I wouldn't be able to give you good advice about the British tech tree just yet anyway, so it's quite a good thing that we didn't have to try and rush the British in as well. So, well, let's go through, first of all, the type of players you are. So, let's say you're the sort of player who likes being aggressive, yeah? You like being aggressive. You like going forth, charge! You want your teammates with you want to go in there and boom, boom, dodge, dodge, boom. If that's you, then we know what you got to go for, yeah? We got to go for the USSR. Now, if you look down here, the tech tree doesn't necessarily start the exact same style as you go through. But as you come through to the KV1, the KV1S, the IS, the IS3, the IS8, and the IS7, and to the same degree, the KV4, and the IS4, and all these sort of stuff. They all have the same sort of playstyle. Each tank, I have to stress, plays very, very, very individual. So you've got to learn each tank. But generally speaking, a general rule for the USSR tanks, you get close, you get personal, and you blow them the F up. Yeah. So one of my favorite tanks is the IS-3. It's a great all-round tank. This tank, if we have a look at its details, it doesn't have all that many hit points. So believe it or not, it sounds a lot worse than the others. It can't take as much of a beating as some of the other heavy tanks. However, it's got great pike nose armor, which means there's a great chance of ricochets just randomly, especially against, I would say lesser players, but normal players. Against normal players who don't know where to aim, we showed you where to just defeat the IS-3 in a couple of Newbie Mondays ago. But this one is a great tank against an unskilled opponent. It has a lot of weaknesses that can be dealt with if you know how, but it's still very, very strong. The turret armor at the front is very respectable. 220 is enough to deflect most shots. The top of the roof of the turret is a bit weaker and can be penetrated by anyone who comes over hills and looks down upon you. You've got to be very careful of artillery as well because of the long back. You're really low with the IS-3, really low. So you can't really use terrain that much to your advantage because you're very low, your turret doesn't move up and down very much, or should I say your gun doesn't move up and down that much. So you've got to be really careful about the nooks and crannies on the ground. You've got to make sure about all this sort of stuff. So, yeah. The damage is great alpha. Great alpha. And I mean that. It has a really slow rate of fire, but boom! It does so much damage. So if you got a couple of IS-3s together, you go in a platoon of 3 IS-3s, anything that comes against you, you're going to boom, 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 take them out. But let's not look so far in the tech tree. You'll get to the IS-3 later. That's something to say, hey, you'll get there. It's a great tank. But don't shun over all the other tanks. The IS-3, sorry, the IS-1 is just as good. It's just very different. It doesn't have the reflective armor. As you can see from the shape there, I can show you my garage and I'll show you the IS-3 up and close and personal. But the angled armor isn't really there, so it's not actually that tough. But that's the great thing about the Russian tanks. They're faster, they're not that tough, but they have a big boomstick. So if you like getting close and personal, these are the tanks for you. You can dodge the enemy shells by just being so close to them that they keep ricocheting off the side of you. You use the wiggle tactic, go back to see the side scraping. All these tactics will be great for a player who loves the IS series. The KV-1S is the first of the line that kind of plays the same. Reasonably lightly armoured, but still really quick with a very powerful gun. The gun's disadvantage is inaccurate. So, if you're that sort of player who likes getting close and personal, this is the tree for you. However, don't shun the USSR? The USA. Because the USA have great all-round tanks. So the heavy tanks in the USA are very similar to the Russians in some respects. They have less alpha, more hit points, generally speaking a bit tougher but also a bit slower. So they still rule very well. If you get the front of a USA tank of the same tier ahead of you, there's a good chance you're not going to penetrate from the front unless you know exactly where to hit. And even then, if they're doing their wiggling and all that sort of stuff, then yeah, you're in trouble. But one of the great things about the USA tanks is the gun depression. They can use terrain amazingly. So they're a great mid-range. They don't have to go rushing towards the enemy to get into a useful place. At mid-range, they can hide behind a hill and they will knock you for 6. If you're approaching them with an IS-3 and they go up a little hill and look down upon you, you won't be able to hit them and they'll be able to hit you. It's a pain in the ass. As an IS-3, if you go over a hill, you're asking for trouble because you have to wait for you to go over the hill before you can actually shoot your opponent. Where the American tanks, they can't. They don't have to. They can just go to the top of the hill, look down, shoot you. Bastards. Right, so let's have a look at their tech tree. So we have here the medium tanks down this line here. So the T2 medium tanks, the M2 medium tank, the M3 Lee, M4, the M4E2, and then if you want to go up, you can into the medium tree. And the great thing about the Americans is the mediums and heavies are reasonably similar. They play quite similar. You separate them purely by, if you want the heavy tank, you're a bit slower, you have a bit better gun and a bit better armor and a bit more HP. With the meds, You have a bit less armor, but you're a bit faster. So it's a trade-off. If you like a little bit more speed, then go for the American meds. If you want a bit more armor and hit points, go for the heavies. It's almost that simple. So it's a really great tree if you want to go up. The mid tiers as well are pretty good now. The M3 Lee was one that was really criticized early on, but it's actually really good now. With the tech tree dispersion being, sorry, not tech tree, the battle tiers going down a lot more. Back before patch 7 point something or 8.0, I can't remember which one it was, the M3 Lee could go against tier 7s and 8s and stuff like that, and it was dreadful. It would just die. But now its max enemy tier is 6. Its frontal armor is actually respectable, and it can take that hit, and its gun is damn good. It has quite a good derpy cannon as well that you can play with. It's pretty solid tank now. It's not something you would go, oh no, skip the Lee anymore. It's just not the same. The M4 is a very decent med tank, and then you go up to the E2 and the EZ8. You've heard a lot about these guys, and they are really good. The EZ8, rapid fire tank with a lot of speed. It is super good, really effective. And the E2, a lot slower, but hugely tough frontal armor. So if you like to be a bit slower, you've all the choices. So the American tree is really flexible. Really flexible. So if you want to go down the heavy line, stroke med line of the American tree, as we can see in the whole tech tree here, you can. You can come across here, you can go straight down the heavies towards the really good T32 and T29, very good average damage and everything, very, very good. But you can also switch up and go across here. Now this is a really cool thing you can do. You can go for the M3 Lee, M4, E2, split up to the T20, which is a fantastic med, and go to the M6 and T29. It takes you a bit longer. It takes you a little bit longer to get to whatever you're going to. If you're going for the Pershing, the M26, or you're going for the T32 as your final destination, like the tank that you want, it takes you a little bit longer. But in the long run, it saves you a bit of time, and you get decent tanks out of it. Otherwise, you go for the M3 Lee, you go to the T1 Heavy, the M6, T29, and T32, you get the M4, EZ8, and T20. Now, that's not a bad thing, because the EZ8 is amazing. If you're like me, you like being a med player, right? It can reposition, and it can kill everything. Everything. It's just got a really good rapid fire gun. You fire a few times, you reposition. You fire a few times, you reposition. I'm not saying the E2 is bad. It is not. It's a very decent tank, but it's for people who enjoy a bit of a mixture. A slower tank. It's a med tank that's had extra armor on, so it's a bit slower. It's still very good. It's solid, but for me, I'm a fast tank player, so I don't necessarily enjoy it. But if you're a slow tank player, you prefer trundling in there, a bit slower, but taking the hits, Jumbo's for you, the E2. So absolutely fantastic. So there's the sort of things you can do with the American tree. It's really nice. But one thing I will advise this for everybody who's new. Everybody. Avoid the light line. Okay? Now, look at this line here. The M2 Lights, M3 Stuarts, M5, Chaffee, M7, and then the EZ8. Now that sounds cool, right? Fast tanks. No. Let me tell you a little story. I started a little article called Invasion of the USA, and I thought it might be really cool to go to the American server as a British player and play nothing but American tanks. And I know how good the Chaffee is, and I know how good the EZ8 is. So I thought, cool, I'll go down the light tank route. It's hard. Really, really hard. Even with the amount of experience I've got in the game and the amount of practice I've had, it was hard. Okay, it's really hard with 50% crew on your first playthrough on a new account without premium. It is super hard. So please, if you're new to the game, avoid it. Just don't do it. Go around the med route, the med heavy route. You will enjoy it so much more. It's really nice. It's really nice for a new player. Trust me. Trust me. Right. Yeah, not to say that to avoid them. Like, eventually go round. The Chaffee is amazing, but just avoid them at first. If you're new, avoid it. Cool. Yeah, so that was basically I'll switch back to me. That was basically the tanks you would like to play if you like to play all-round tanks. You like to play aggressive, in-your-face tanks and all-round tanks. They're the sort of tanks you play. But I hear you say, what about the German tree? What about the German tree? Let's go and have a look at the Germans. Okay, the Germans have interesting vehicles. Now, I like a lot of them. I actually have my most played vehicle here, the Hetzer, and I'll go through TDs a bit later. But I played Hetzer very much like I play my IS. I drive forward at the enemies at point blank range and blow them the fudge up. Yeah. Yeah. So before the Germans get here, we are going to explain their advantages, pros and cons. Now, a lot of people complain about the the Russian bias, saying the German tanks rubbish. Don't touch them because this is a Russian game. They hate the Germans. They make sure they're bad. Well, that's not necessarily true. Come on. They're just harder to play. And I will admit that. The German tanks don't use angled armor until much later. So the armor values, although look quite high, are actually less than most of the other countries. So they're harder to play because you need to know your side scope and you need to know all your different types of maneuvers, how to angle the tank to maximize armor, and all this sort of stuff is necessary to play the German tanks well. So they're just harder. They're not worse, they're just harder to play, which is respectable for anyone who decides to go down the German tree. So we have a look over here, and this is one of my favorite tanks, the Panzer 35T. For a tier 2, back when it was in beta, it was actually really solid. I actually play it a lot still as my tier 2, like I've got 200 battles played with it, which is quite a lot for someone who doesn't actually play tier 2s anymore. But the front armor was actually really respectable for a tier 2. It was the intro for the tank destroyers, which obviously, as you can see now, it isn't. I actually at one point had these two not unlocked, and it went straight from here to the Hetzer. But that's no longer the case. So this is actually the light route, and it's the same sort of pain you would get if you went down the route with the American tree. Probably a bit less so, but this is the key tank. The tier 4 light tank is the key pain threshold for every single country. You go here to the American tree, it is the M5. You go here to the Russian tree, it's the A20. Avoid the line with these three tanks if you are new. They are hard to play. They're not bad necessarily. Okay, they're pretty bad, but they are just hard. The payoff you get here is the Panzer IV. The Panzer IV is a bloody good tank. Although they recently nerfed it, it's still a bloody good tank. It's really good in every way. It's got great mobility, great armor, great range, great damage. It's just a damn all-round good tank. And not only that, it progresses into the VK360 goddamn OP1. This tank is amazing. It's super fast, super tough, got a great gun. It is just damn right badass, right? For a tier 6, right? Badass. This tank is badass. Don't let anyone tell you the German tanks are bad. The VK3601 is OP. Just freaking OP. Have you ever gone into battle and you've seen that tank and you've gone, hey, that tank's really bad, like it's destroying me and I can never know how to penetrate it? It was a VK3601, I'll guarantee it. But yeah, it's absolutely amazing. So yeah, the VK361 is a great reward from going through, and as a lot of people in the chat are probably saying now, oh, the Panzer IV is no longer as good as it used to be. I'm not going to disagree. They've obviously nerfed it. It has been nerfed. But they have nerfed almost all the other tier 5s. The SU 85 lost its 100mm, so did all the tier 6 around it. So I believe it's lost relative strength. It's not bad, it's just not bad. It's just not as good as it was, but then again, none of the other tier 5s and 6s are either. They've all been nerfed in their own way. So it's still a perfectly great tank. If you can get past the Panzer 38NA, okay, which has no armor, is a scout. It's a scout tank. You get into tier 8, 9 tank fights. If you want to know what a scout tank is, I'll explain that in part 2, and the reason why I keep saying avoid these tanks if you're new. But basically, there are other routes you can take here, and this is actually one of the coolest routes you can take. The Panzer II is a great tank, and the Lux, Leopard, and VK2801, all of them amazing. Seriously, amazing tanks. The Leopard has a really weak gun, but the armor is damn decent for a tier 4. It is considered a light tank, so you do get in higher tier battles, but it's actually a really nice tank to learn how to scout in. You have an okay gun that can fight its own tier, and it's got great armor if you're in a tier 4 fight. But if you're in the higher tiers, you have learned, because you're a weak gun, that you cannot fight. See, it's got tier 3 and tier 2 gun as its two options. You'll learn to stay out of the fights unless you can, fight the tier 4s and 3s. You'll learn and respect the scout by playing the leopard. It's not a bad one at all. Then you get to the VK, and the VK is just fun. You play the VK and you get this gun, right? It's pretty much the Hetz's gun. It has decent penetration with the gold round, okay penetration with the high explosives, and the damage here is fantastic. One of the reasons I say this tank's so good, you're starting to see it in professional play. It's actually starting to be picked up with the pros. Why? Have you ever seen how annoying an ELC is? Or an AMX? No? Well, I'll just go back to that tank and show you something. 410 average damage for a high explosive round? That's one-shots an ELC. Oh, yeah. Right, anyway, I love it. I think it's a great vehicle. It's got great armor, it's got that great gun, and it's considered a scout. So it's good fun. I wouldn't say it's the most effective tank in the world, but it's definitely good fun. If you don't go down that route, you have the Panzer IIIA, the Panzer III, Panzer III-4, and then you can go up to the VK 361. That line is actually really decent. If you're an all-rounder player and you like playing... If you like playing a lot of other... sorry, the phone just went. If you like playing a lot of medium-range tanks, they have a lot of capability. Their gun isn't amazing, their armor isn't amazing, their speed isn't amazing, they're pretty damn all-round. Then this route is for you. The Panzer II, the Panzer IIA, the Panzer III, the Panzer III-4, and then up to the VK. That is really good. And do you know what? That's a great place to end. And I will end the break here, and I'll go and answer the phone. So just stay with me, guys, and we'll be back for next part. Go!